Welcome to the Jupiter Real Estate Market Update for April 2025. This is going to be for condos and townhome sales. I make these videos so that buyers and sellers of real estate in and around Jupiter can make more data-driven decisions. The median price of a condo and townhome in Jupiter is now $545,000. My name is Casey Prindle, your Jupiter Realtor. If you've been thinking about buying or selling any real estate in or around Jupiter, give me a call, send me a text message. If you want, you can even send me an email. All my contact information is below. But most importantly, do it sooner rather than later. The faster that we start working together, the better it is for both of us. Data in this report is typically going to run 30 days behind. That's why even though we're in April, we're going to be looking at March data. Stick around to the end of the video, and I'm going to give you some of my other thoughts on the real estate market that aren't covered by this data. All right. Condos and townhomes, ready? Here we go. Median sold price, $542,500. That is down from $566,000 in March of 2024. Very small sample size when it comes to condos and townhome sales in Jupiter. So don't put a whole lot of stock in this, right? Sample size is just too small. You can kind of use it as an overall guide. If you want to look at it and say median pricing is up over the last few years, fine, but don't really use it too much past that, in my opinion. Another thing I want to mention, condo and townhome markets are running very independent from one another right now. A lot going on in the condo market that doesn't affect the townhome market. So depending on which product you're looking at, we're going to want to have a different discussion on each marketplace. So those are my notes there. Let's move on. Total number of properties sold. All right, total number of properties sold, 64. Let's see, let's go back. Here we are. Down from 74 year over year. Look, I want to bring this up because I'm hearing from a fair amount of people that they were looking at single family homes and have just decided between insurance costs and the total cost, maybe it's a better idea to look at townhomes because you can get a lot of square footage in a townhome for a much lower price than you can a single family home in Jupiter. So I think it's worth keeping an eye on where total sales go here, just because I think a lot of this is going to tie back to affordability. So I think it's going to be a really interesting marketplace. I think, first-time home buyers, if this isn't something that's on your radar, you should probably put it on the list, honestly. If you want to give me a call, talk to me about it. I can give you all the reasons I think it's a better idea in a lot of cases than a single family home. Also applies to people that are looking for a second home and don't want to deal with having to organize vendors every week and everything like that. So that aside, 64 sales last month, coming off the bottom of the chart. Let's see where it goes. All right, sold to list price. This is going to be the percentage of original asking price that properties sold for on the whole. Looks like we kind of could be breaking a downtrend line here and peaking up a little bit. That would be better news from sellers. Now, a couple of ways that we get this number moving up. The most obvious way would be that sellers price their properties more on pace with the market. They're not aspirational in their pricing. They're very realistic. Buyers recognize the value and are willing to pay close to full listing price. So I'm curious to see if this trend does continue. I do think that a lot of sellers anyways that own condos and townhomes are being more flexible than single family home sellers. I'm just kind of feeling that overall in the market. My experience anyways. But yeah, I think it'll be interesting to keep an eye on. And of course, buyers want the chart to be down here. It means they can negotiate more. Sellers want something like this up here where buyers are just paying at or over full listing price, right? All right, median days on market. So median days are the number of days it takes for a property to go from active to pending sale, not active to closed. So if you're on a 30 or 45 day contract, you're going to need to add 30 or 45 days on to the median days to get the average number of days from the time that you go in contract until you get money into your bank account if you're a seller, or money leaves your bank account if you're a buyer. 42 days. Look, sharp decline. I'm surprised. Did not expect to see that coming. Now, there's a couple of things that I kind of want you to know. First is this. If people had their property actively listed and the listing period expired, 180 days, 365 days, whatever, the property or that listing expired, this doesn't show up here, right? This is only houses that actually, or condos or townhomes that actually closed. So just know that, there is a little bit of a, actually I can kind of make more sense of this for you. Here we are. Active listing days up at 78. Closed listing days down at 42. See what I mean? So you know that a lot of people on the active side are either just leaving it active longer or canceling out, and it's not showing up down here. But I digress. Point is, I was surprised to see this down. I think we probably bounce back up. But we'll keep an eye on it, right? All right, median price per square foot. Look, we've been range bound here between $300 and $400 a foot, aside from one little peak. But for the most part, go all the way back here. 3 years, we're range bound between $300 and $400 a foot. Look, I think this also goes into, for some people, pontificating doom and gloom upon the real estate market in South Florida, in condos and townhomes particularly. I don't really think it's coming to fruition, so stop listening to that nonsense. It'll be interesting if it either does break below 300 or break above 400. But for now, it's just kind of something to keep an eye on. Again, small sample size. Don't put much into this. Said it time and again. The nicer stuff tends to sell. People don't want the beat up product. And the nicer stuff just sells at a bit of a higher price per square foot. So no surprises here. Just kind of par for the course. If you have been thinking about buying or selling a home in or around Jupiter, give me a call, 786-443-7203. Don't be shy. You can call or text me anytime. If I don't answer the phone, it's probably just because I think you are a spam caller or I don't know your phone number and I'm letting it go to voicemail. So leave a message and I promise I will call you back. But that is my cell phone. It's only my cell phone, not some random person on a 400 people team that you don't know who you're talking to. All right, total dollar volume. All right, total dollar volume. Monster move here. Up to 46 million from the 27 million. But let's wait a moment. Let's look at some seasonality. Where do you see big run-ups on this chart? You see one here? That was February. That's April. What about here? Oh, it's January. That's March. What about here? February. April. Here. January. March. This is seasonality of the Jupiter condo and townhome market. Right? Happens every year. Now, let's look at March and April. March, April here. What happens? Down. Here we are again. April. Down. June. April. Right? Happens every year. So, if you're a seller and you come to me now and say, I want aspirational pricing, I want to catch the best time in the market, blah, 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 I'm going to tell you, look, you already missed it. You already missed it. You should have been on market realistically back here, right? Sales start to pick up in January. So you already missed that window, and now you're on the downside of this chart. It's not to say you can't sell. It's just you're giving yourself a weaker position to sell in than you would have if you'd come in, listed in December, January. That's really the ideal for condos and townhomes. If you're a buyer and you want to buy something when everybody else wants to buy something. In the winter months, December, January, February, March, April, I'm going to tell you, bad idea. Bad idea. If you want to buy, you got to wait until it's real hot down here. Condo and townhome market runs differently than single family home market. If you're buying a condo or townhome, you're going to want to wait until nobody who's here vacationing that decides they want to buy a house in Jupiter is around, right? So seasonality is really important for you to look at when you're looking at condos and townhomes in Jupiter. So I don't think enough attention is paid to that, really. All right, months of supply, my favorite statistic that there is all the way across the board. You show me how much supply there is, I'm going to tell you who it's better for, buyers or sellers, and I'm going to be able to tell you a lot about the marketplace, about whether I want to be a buyer or a seller. If you look at these statistics, and I give you the statistic of nationally, 6 months is considered a neutral market that doesn't favor buyers or sellers, but if you look at our Jupiter local market, really the dividing line is here around 4 months. So if we considered 4 months to be market neutral, and we know that we're now up at 8.8 months of supply, we're up 33% over the last 12 months. Do you want to be a buyer or a seller right now? If you said you want to be a buyer, winner, winner, chicken dinner. If you said you want to be a seller, call me because we got a lot to talk about. Look, when there was no supply down here, it didn't matter where you priced or what kind of product, what condition you threw out onto the market, it was going to sell. This was not a difficult market to be a seller in. If you're a seller and you still think we're in this market, we are a whole world away, right? Conversely, if you're a buyer, look, this is a good time. If I'm a buyer and I look at this, I know, oh wow. So there's a lot more choices. I have 33% more choices right now than I did this time last year. That's good for me to know. This is just unfathomable how much more choice you have now, right? Approaches almost 1,000%. Crazy. Anyways, all right, so high supply, good for buyers. Low supply, good for sellers. Right now, we're firmly in a buyer's market in condos and townhomes. So that is some good news for buyers if you're out here looking around. And again, use seasonality. If you're, again, looking and you're not too time pressured, call me here in April and tell me you'd want to buy a condo or a townhome. And let's start looking towards June or July as the target time for you to have offers going in. Right? That's just how you use the data and make the most sense of it, and what I think would be the best course of action if I was a buyer right now. So if you're thinking about buying, call or text me sooner rather than later. The faster that I start working with you, the easier it is for me to position you. This is especially true with sellers. I run into a lot of sellers that, the house just, it needs things done to it before it can be listed. If the curb appeal is not great, look, I've done this hundreds of times. I can tell you what's going to work best for you and what's not going to work. So don't be shy. Call, text, or email me sooner rather than later, 786-443-7203. My email address is down here in the contact box right down there. All right, let's get on to some final thoughts. All right, so for my final thoughts, let's talk about the doom and gloom I alluded to earlier. It is getting comical. My news feed is filled with articles that say Florida's in a free-for-all and condo market in Florida is doing terrible things. Look, of the 64 sales that took place last month, it was an even 50-50 split between condos and townhomes, right? So 32 people last month said, yeah, I reviewed the condo's financials. I get the product and I don't have a problem buying this. The assessments are done. I've looked at the reserve studies. I'm comfortable buying this product. And chances are they got a pretty good deal. You do have to exercise more due diligence on condos. I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is For those of you that think the condo market is in free for all, it's just not. The statistics just don't say that. Again, you have to exercise some caution, do some due diligence. But hey, here's the reality of it. If you come to me and say, I want to buy a beachfront property in Jupiter. If your budget is unlimited, cool. We can do that. If your budget is limited, you're going to be forced to look at condos. If you want an ocean view, there's not a whole lot of ocean view condos that you can choose from. So it's a desirable product. I don't think people are ever going to stop wanting to live on the beach. I don't know. I just don't see it. But that's my final thought for you. Thanks for watching, guys. And we'll see you next month, all right? Take care. Have a good month.